Welcome, everyone. So today we are discussing the recently released AI, National AI Task Force report. Essentially, that report included some recommendations to the government to essentially policies and directives going forward with regards to AI and how AI should be integrated in society, the Jamaican society specifically. So today we essentially just want to do a quick run through the report, have a discussion. I'm sure you guys have your opinions on it. I have a few of my own. We can look at anything that jumps out at us and maybe even give our own opinions on how maybe some of the things they recommended can be enacted, or if any of those things that they recommended are even feasible, or which ones are feasible. So I will begin by essentially sharing my screen, and then we can feel free to chime in as we go through the report. So if there's anything that sort of jumps out at you, um, we can sort of discuss it. Just I'll highlight as we go along as well. All right, so begin here. So introduction and report essentially says here to make recommendations to Jamaica to harness the potential of artificial intelligence as a catalyst for innovation, economic growth, and enhance societal well-being. Uh, uh, our mandate has been broadened focus to conduct rigorous research, engage with strategic stakeholders across public and private sectors, and draw upon international best practices to forge a path forward that is tailored to Jamaica's unique economic, cultural, and social approach to making these recommendations. So just to quickly, let's go through the task force. So according to this, it brings together wealth of experience in cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, digital policy and regulations, data analytics, engagement, IT services, and sector, intergovernmental organizations, as well as academia. I am a bit surprised, or I wonder if there is anybody from the law sector. This, but let's look at what they or who the task force is comprised of. So we have Adrian Dunkley, CEO of Star Apple. We have Alexander Carswell, Caribbean Policy Research Institute. Of Lauren Peard from Blue Dot, Uni Epstein. We have Trevor Forrest, who's actually one of our advisory board members. Sean Thorpe from UTech, Cordell Green from the Broadcasting Commission. So a lot of these names are pretty familiar to us. And we have Daniel Kaur, Professor Kaur from University of West Indies.
Yeah, Matthew, just since you asked, I believe Joaquin Murray, who has long been with the Ministry of Science, Technology, Science, the Telecoms Ministry, or the ministry responsible for telecoms. She's a lawyer by training, I believe, and she helped with the deregulation of the telecom sector in the early 2000s. So that may be she may have been able to provide legal insight for the task force.
Who was that? Repeat the name.
Joaquin Murray, the chief technical director in Office of the Prime Minister, no. Yeah.
Okay. Right, so I'll highlight it. All right, so it seems here they drew from the UNESCO Caribbean AI Policy Roadmap. I think I remember seeing this at some point. I think developed in coordination with the Broadcasting Commission. All right, so I guess let's kick it off here, where they start to talk about the ethical considerations of the use of AI. The broad points are limitations of AI systems, transparency about AI processes, accountability, capacity building, data privacy, inclusivity, and accessibility. So I highlighted a few points. So this one kind of jumped out at me when I read it. I think it may be a bit misleading. So it says here, all AI systems as of 2024 are narrowly trained, meaning they may excel in specific tasks, but fail in others. There is some truth to that, but I think it's generally in the industry, the general aim is going towards general intelligence. The base basically be
Okay, I'm not hearing you now. Or is that just me?
Yeah, also having trouble hearing Matthew.
Yeah, just give him some time to reach out.
Well, while we wait for Matthew to rejoin, can I ask if anybody's had a chance to go through the document, even just cursorily, just look at the big topic, the topics?
Actually, I looked through all of it, but it was 2 weeks ago when it released. I don't
Okay.
remember. I don't remember every single detail.
All right.
Overall, like I said, I like it. I agreed with it much more than I was expecting.
Ah,
Nothing really jumped out at me as like, anything radical or anything out of pocket that they were attempting to do. And I particularly like the part where they saw the need to fund local development in areas, potentially invest in hardware and that type of stuff. Because I do see other countries, like for example, South Korea. There was a story in the week or last week about those time, about South Korea essentially buying or investing in hardware, more data centers for other countries.
mhm.
Yeah, so I think more countries might go in that direction, but I feel it's more of a fear of missing out type of investment.
Okay.
I, I can't really guarantee that is going to make sense in the future. People else that things are changing in our opinion.
You guys hear me now?
Yeah,
All
we
right.
can hear.
Yep.
Yeah, my connection went down. All right. Um, I think Dimitri, you were saying something, or were you just asking? You couldn't hear me.
We just go over some feelings, but we can continue with other. Essentially,
Okay.
just consider restarting somewhere over there.
Right. I don't know if you guys heard of this part where I was saying, so it said one of the limitations of AI systems that all specifically says all AI systems as of 2024 are narrowly trained, meaning they may excel in specific tasks but fail in others. I think this probably should have been expounded a bit more because the systems as of now, as with large language models, at least the motivation seems to be to train it to be general purpose rather than perform well on specific tasks. So this line may not be so true much longer. Um So they said here it's imperative that proactive measures be taken to mitigate any injustices that may arise from AI-driven decisions. Capacity building, digital media and information and data privacy. Organizations deploying AI systems must ensure that their operations do not inadvertently breach these legal requirements, particularly concerning data collection, storage, and processing. Um, well, let's start right there because as we've seen, you guys still hear me, right?
Yeah, boy, we're checking out for a second.
Yeah, I was just saying, as you've seen, a lot of these big AI companies, they have more or less been able to build the technology they've built by more or less skirting data privacy laws. I guess the question is true AI progress possible? It's let's say Jamaica wants to be on the forefront of AI development and progress. Is that truly possible whilst at the same time following data protection laws to the T, essentially? Do you guys think that that's possible?
Uh, Depending on where you're coming from, essentially the foundation of all of this modern AI technology is data. But I feel like it's also possible to exclude personal data when we're doing, right? So I don't know what the laws look like in terms of what the law should look like in terms of using people's personal data. I feel like you can exclude the actual identifying information for people. It's a training and data. That to me seems very reasonable. As it relates to public copyright, stuff like copyright now, that I guess that's a larger debate that could have actually slow down the whole progress of AI. But different countries seem to be coming to different conclusions.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm. Yeah,
Anyone else have any thoughts on that? Basically, do you think our Data Protection Act would conflict or could possibly conflict with um us progressing technically um in the AI field? If we are to hold companies to that law, to the laws, um, could we possibly risk falling behind even further?
I think for sure, especially if it's not like a continual process of evaluating the Data Protection Act, because
Mhm.
AI is rapidly developing, then the Data Protection Act may be outdated. So then it would stump innovation for the country.
Okay.
Yeah, the European Union has been, it's been said that their approach to data privacy has
Mm-hmm.
deprived them of resources to train AI. I think Dimitri spoke to the broader issue of copyright, which is, I think, is fairly well known, well recognized. But the Jamaica and the Caribbean, our legal approach and our regulatory approach to data privacy is essentially modeled on the EU's approach, primarily the GDPR,
Mm-hmm.
which is extraordinarily different from the American approach. Pragmatically speaking, the Americans have said that data privacy is dead. California is an outlier there. But essentially, for a very long time now, the powers that be have essentially refused to protect American citizens' private data from American companies. It's a different thing if, for example, you look at the court rulings regarding TikTok. The United States Senate, both the Democrats and the Republicans, agree that American companies like Meta and Alphabet are quite likely even more egregious offenders of violating American citizens' data privacy. But they say that is entirely beside the point. When you have a company that's subject to Chinese influence, they're not gonna stand for it. So I don't think in Jamaica, I mean, we don't produce a lot of technology. We don't host a lot of content that gives us the opportunity to suck in American data, or for that matter, pretty much any data outside the region where net instead it's the opposite. We tend to, Jamaicans and Caribbean people consume a lot of foreign and specifically North American content. So I don't know that we're even in a position, regardless of our legal stance, to violate Americans or Europeans privacy, data privacy. There is, generally speaking, Jamaica is, we believe we're a sovereign country. We talk about it, blithely as if we're a sovereign country, but the Jamaica takes its orders from the metropole, specifically from the United States. That's just real, I think Bustamante said it very clearly, or was it Siaga? The Jamaica's foreign policy is very simple. We're with the West, right? One line. That's Jamaica's foreign policy. This notion that we're going to buck up against the United States is just it's for children, maybe in high school. But certainly by the time you get to university, you should realize that nothing don't really go so. We have 60 odd years of history to show that. So yeah, I think regardless of what our laws are, we will never enforce laws. No government will ever enforce laws that will that buck up against the Americans, whatever the Americans say at that particular point in time.
Yeah, it's a good point you raised, because I've had this discussion several times, in terms of going forward, how do we, as a Caribbean society, protect the data that we produce? You have these big, large corporations that are essentially making billions off of said data. But I mean, as you said, I guess you could say we produce more than sucking the data from other countries. But it's still a question as to how can we benefit from the data that we produce, and not only that, but how can we ensure that it's not abused? I think these are some questions that we possibly need to answer going forward. But I mean, as you said, there's also the geopolitical question at play. We may not have full control over what we're able to do anyway. Was somebody else want to say something on that?
Yeah, sorry. I just wanted to point out, you said that mainly we focused on money, the point of you're focusing on protecting Jamaica's data. I mean, there's more than one way to look at that, right? You have some countries, I think like Iceland and some other, right, more northern European countries like Estonia. And these countries are actually like collecting and presenting their cultural data essentially, for the large tech companies to use as training data. So because for the specific reason that they don't want to be excluded, essentially. They kind of recognize that they aren't training the big models essentially. But if their data is included in the large data sets, then their languages and their cultural relevance won't be excluded, and their people won't be excluded from making full use of the same apps that everybody else is using. So maybe the only way to look at it is not just that, we want to protect our data from being abused, but there's also risking excluding yourself from purpose.
So you're saying then maybe we actually need to do some work in maybe providing in the opposite sense, providing more data, but I guess having control over that in terms of curating that and as you say, allow us to be included in the AI space going forward.
I'm saying it's a double-edged sword and
Yeah.
different people are betting on different outcomes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Also, I didn't realize, I think Craig said one of our laws of the European Union, GDRP laws. From little that I heard about that. Those laws seem very restrictive. I'm actually kind of concerned about that. And everybody always highlights the point that Europe is behind when it comes to AI
Yeah.
development. So that's actually concerning more than our data protection laws and the restrictive laws that kind of hamper development AI, like demonstrably.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah. Yeah.
was that?
That's one of the things I'm a bit concerned about. That's one of the fact that we tend to just kind of copy and paste the laws from Europe or the UK. And as we're seeing right now, Europe, it seems, at least on the face of it, seems to be lagging very much behind the US and China in terms of AI progress because of how restrictive their laws are on it right now.
Yeah.
So I mean, do we want to be modeling that really?
Yeah, Matthew, I don't disagree with you that Europe is lagging behind, but I'd be very cautious about suggesting that there's a cause and effect relationship between their legal system and their lagging behind in terms of generative AI. I mean, they lag behind in many other areas. And it's not because of the laws that protect them. The United States is an outlier in terms of progress in generative AI. I mean, you have, 150 other countries in the world. There are really only two giants in this area, and that's the United States and China. India does not have these restrictive laws, and they've been pouring, they're a behemoth when it comes to IT services, but they have simply not been as successful because they have other issues, like maybe the quality of the data and the pervasiveness of their digital economy. The United States is ahead of everybody else because they've had the platforms like Facebook and all the social media platforms going back to the early 2000s, Reddit, YouTube. They have had access to all of this user generated content to feed the AI. And of course, we know that OpenAI and these other companies have violated the copyrights of a lot of other countries, of a lot of people from a wide number of countries. So all I'm saying is, it's let's not assume that it is the laws that have prevented European companies from accomplishing what American companies have. Because I don't think I've not seen any data or any discussion, and this is something that is widely discussed, right? But I've not seen anyone making an argument with evidence that supports that position. Yeah.
Craig, I think you're actually making a point towards the American approach because you pointed out that their advantage comes from their big tech companies essentially. But those same big tech companies tend to run into all sorts of issues inside of the European Union, right? So the American approach seems to be the approach that is working. They partner with the big tech companies, help them to grow stuff like that, and they end up coming up on top of the newest technology because of these same big tech companies that don't seem to be allowed to grow to that size inside of the European Union, even though the European Union have overall a bigger economy. Well, it's the bigger economy, a larger population, I should say.
Yeah, it's a larger population but a smaller economy. But that's beside the point. But here's what I'm suggesting, Dimitri. The European Union is what, less than 30 countries in the world. there are many other countries in the world that do not have European style laws. The vast majority of countries in the world, in fact, probably do not have European style data privacy laws, but yet none of them have accomplished what the United States has. The United States has two things going for it that no other country does. Other than a large, 300 million English-speaking people, they speak the same language. That's not the case in Europe. So other than the sheer benefit of large amounts of data that are suitable, the second is that they are the United States. They don't care about they don't have to worry about other countries coming down on them. No country in the world punishes the United States. Whereas, for example, in Jamaica, if our media or our companies behave in a way that Americans don't find convenient, you get a letter from the U.S. Embassy. And I'm not, let me quote you a specific example, because I don't want people to think I'm making this stuff up. We all know that media companies, cable companies in Jamaica used to broadcast HBO, Showtime, and other content that was not licensed for distribution in Jamaica and the Caribbean. And all that happened was that the HBO wrote a letter that was sent through the official channels, and the Broadcasting Commission instructed all cable companies to stop broadcasting the content within months, right? That's just one simple example, and that kind of stuff happens all the time. We issue a license, a telecoms license to a Jamaican expat couple, and the Americans don't like it. Them so rescind the license, and within a year it's done, right? We have Huawei, a Chinese company, coming in and helping the Caribbean to wire up schools. The United States said none of that. And you hear that USAID is going to be working with the government of Jamaica to wire schools using American equipment, of course. And now that Trump is in power, that of course is shot to hell. So yeah, it's a complex topic.
So, Dimitri, what are you calling for? Is it like you want Jamaica to model off of the US metrics, or is it like you want Jamaica to be innovative so we can also check US?
Well, I always think we should be innovative now, come up with our own style. But I think the American approach is just simply demonstrably more the more useful approach, the more successful approach so far. Just I understand that there are other potential factors involved, but just a surface level comparison show you that the American approach gives them more results than the over. What I feel is over regulation inside the EU. Is people's personal data are that important? Not that not other than the fact that you could maybe identify a person based on data. I feel stuff like that is different than just say, for example, a recording or a video that could just be used to improve how the AI function, how the AI sees or hears or reads or something like that. Like all of this doesn't really matter where it comes from, as long as it's coherent, the AI can make use of it and learn something. It doesn't really matter like individual person's data. It's more of the collective, larger amount of data that matters. So these data protection laws aren't really protecting much, really, in my opinion.
All right, let me see if I can make this pointed for you. Right now, there is a discussion about the gag clause that prevents the Integrity Commission from disclosing investigations of public people, that is of elected individuals or very high level civil servants. Would we be okay with saying, look, that data, any investigations the Integrity Commission is doing, any allegations that are made against these people, and not just against high level people them like those, but people like us on this call, right? Our email addresses, the contents of our emails, which would allow for doxing, for example, where you have the police show up at your house and say that you've been accused of molesting children. Are we okay? Is that a suitable sacrifice for the possibility of an AI industry, a healthier AI industry than we have now?
No, I think there are good exceptions, like what you just said. Anything that is personally identifiable data, stuff that is exactly right. Like you see the email address, stuff that can be linked back to you. Like the contents of the email itself, if they cannot be linked back to you to the data, I think that's where the data to be shoved into an AI essentially. So if it's personally identifiable, or your messages, the messages themselves are helpful to the data, but your personal information that this message was written by X person at X point, and this person lives here and here and there, this is their number. That's not really even useful information for training the AI because what we're trying to extract is not people's personal information really is the coherence, the linguistic styling and the actual language itself, the characteristics of the language itself that we're trying to extract, not the actual identification or the information related to the person that wrote the data or the data is associated with. So I feel like, and you can filter stuff like this out of the data sets because it's actually something that they're already doing in the US whenever they train the AI. Just and they do this automatically, just for the sake of avoiding lawsuits. So just based in this is in the US and they already just do this already without even considering a law specific towards that, right? Because that hasn't been decided, but just because they want to avoid lawsuits, they're already excluding this type of data. So I'm not saying we should include that type of data, but companies are already wise enough to the fact that you really shouldn't be identifying people specifically or try to avoid that type of stuff. Unless it's a public official, some kind of public personality, then really you should be excluding that person's private information.
So what you're saying is that even in the absence of such laws, those rules, those behaviors that the data privacy laws from Europe and in Jamaica should be respected.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, definitely. There should be. I don't think AI should be able to look at my phone number or your email address or anything like that. That definitely shouldn't be allowed. But the companies themselves kind of understand this also. Like it's a legal threat to them. So they want to stay away from doing that also. So it's not, I don't think it's as pressing an issue as maybe we might think. Because the companies are already trying to avoid that. They don't want to get into any legal battles over identifying private persons. Because there might be other laws, existing laws, that that they could be sued with, right? Before we even make any new laws related to data privacy.
Yeah,
Right.
I hear you, and I probably, I mean, I think you've made a good argument regarding the American companies if they're gonna abide by the laws, even if there are no such laws put in place, and that's great. The in Jamaica we do not have those kinds of traditions. You just think about gas stations collecting your TRN number when you pay with a credit card. And these companies are in no place whatsoever to protect that kind of data. So and we know how big scamming has become in Jamaica. And SIM, people with lists of SIM cards and who owns that number and so on. So the data privacy laws that we have in Jamaica hopefully will move our companies, our private sector companies, to behaving in a more sensible manner. And maybe one day we'll get to where the Americans are or where the Europeans are. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I don't think, yeah, I agree. Don't think we need to adopt extremely restrictive laws to people's data. Although, yes, that is important.
Matthew, you wanted to move on to another point?
Yeah, we're going to move on to the other part of the report. So the strength the main strengths it outlines here is the visionment, graphic looker, the growing tech ecosystem. So they mentioned the JTDA, our youthful and tech savvy population. So Jamaica has a young, digitally engaged population, eager to adopt new technologies. And lastly, collaborative regional efforts such as the UNESCO Caribbean AI Policy Roadmap. It ends by saying Jamaica has a global cultural footprint, highly disproportionate to its size, population, and economic ranking. Therefore, culturally rooted AI innovations are more likely to be well received in global markets, and the rapid appearance of new generative AI tools has reduced the technological barrier to producing such innovations. So my question to you guys is, do these really seem like strengths based on what you see here? You guys heard it?
Hold on, I feel like
Yeah.
I missed it.
No, I was asking based on what we see here, do these seem like strengths? Or is there anything here that doesn't really seem like a strength?
Well,
Well,
sorry, go ahead, Dimitri.
I was saying all those seem reasonable to me. They seem like strengths. Uh, as I said earlier, I agree with a lot of stuff that's already in this document right here. Very broadly.
Yeah, the first point, government support. I mean, government talks, but they've been talking for 20 years. Anybody who's been in the tech industry for 20 years will tell you that there's been no serious policy work, no serious policy advance in IT for probably more than a decade, right? Um, we there's just a ton of talk. So this notion that Jamaica is committed to digital transformation, I mean, without COVID, we'd be 5 years behind where we are now. It's only COVID that's allowed us to accelerate. And the World Bank report on the digital economy in Jamaica, which was launched, I think, middle of last year, so June 2024, makes this point that yeah, there's a lot of talk about digital transformation, but the execution has been extraordinarily weak. You just look at eGov, which used to be Fiscal Services Limited. More than a decade ago, we agreed it should become the central IT office for the government, and yet it just has not happened. So I'm not so sanguine that government support is a strength, especially, I mean, this report in itself was completed, I don't know, many months ago, and it's just now being released. So I don't know how reliable this government support is. And as for Vision 2030, Vision 2030 was created, 20 years ago. I don't think Vision 2030 says nothing about AI. Let's just be clear about that. But about technology, oh sure, it had a lot of nice things to say, but as far as I know, not a single industry panel even has a technology as a significant component, except maybe the one that comes out of MSET. But Jamaica really has no coherent technology policy right now that I know of.
Yeah, I agree. I've been hearing about Vision 2030 for it's almost 2030. Um, I'm just curious as to how close we are to achieving most of the goals in such. And yeah, I highly doubt it's been updated to include um the AI initiatives.
Well,
So yeah.
there are what are called medium-term framework plans. Every 3 to 5
Mhm.
years, the sector panels produce a new plan. So
Yeah.
I think we're in the middle of a current 3-year plan, but I've checked with the Vision
Mhm.
2030 Secretariat, and generative AI was not a consideration for any of these sectors, nor for that matter is even AI.
Mhm.
Good old-fashioned AI was not a consideration in any of them. I mean, if you do a search, I did a search as part of the global index for responsible AI, and I don't remember seeing a single economic sector in Jamaica that had an AI plan. Not one.
I mean, that's what we're here for. I agree, all these things are so. I don't think we can really just depend on government for everything. They're really just here to make the environment for things to happen. And in terms of that, I feel like they've been headed in the right direction. Sometimes you have to leave certain things up to the private sector or to the people to do them. And the government just provides support.
So they said
I've never heard somebody, like, other than somebody in government, like, really talk about that in a serious way. Everybody laugh.
they mention here the youthful and tech-savvy population, but is that the strength in the way that we think it is? Is that more of a consumer base rather than a creator base? Because it mentions here digitally engaged population eager to adopt new technologies.
Well, that's good too, in a different way.
Mhm.
Because if you want a population that, if you're building something local, you want a population that will actually consume it. So you want consumers as well as producers. Everybody can be a producer, essentially. But you at least need a base of operations to start with before you can even consider about competing internationally. So it's important to have that youthful population. If we had a different situation where most of the population was older, it would be even worse off for businesses just starting out in tech. You'd have less of a market.
Yeah, so I'll just speak to what the data actually says about this. So the average Jamaican, meaning the median Jamaican, is now about 30 years old and has a grade 11 education, and is not very digitally literate. That person has not used a spreadsheet in the last 3 months. This is based on the Digital Media and Information Literacy Survey that was done in 2022. So most Jamaicans do not use technology in the workplace. They have not used like office applications in the last 3 months. And they're not comfortable using those applications. They might be okay using, they're very okay using WhatsApp. And some of them might be okay using email, but it does not go much beyond that, right? That's what the data shows. In addition to that, there's the all media survey that was, the last one was done in 2023, I believe, by MRSL for the media industry. And it confirms, I think it had a slightly rosier picture, but generally speaking, I think Matthew and Dimitri have said, yeah, there's consumption. But let's talk now about the consumption. The fact is that our consumption is less than half of Barbados's, not Barbados, Bahamas. With Barbados, I think we're probably at like 2/3 of their consumption. So we're talking about the amount of data consumed per person, let's say on a monthly basis. The Jamaica is nowhere near where the Bahamas or Barbados is. And part of that, well, we know a large part of that, the World Bank reports tells us, is because data is too expensive in Jamaica relative to a lot of other countries in the world, including our Caribbean neighbors, like those I mentioned.
Well, there are sometimes simple explanations for stuff like the fact that we are behind Barbados in terms of data consumption, right? Just remember that Jamaica is a larger country. You have to invest more to get the data across the country, essentially. And so that is taking a lot longer in terms of just full coverage of our country. Like if you move outside of Kingston, start going to the more rural areas, you find that it becomes exponentially harder to get good internet. I think I heard somebody say that the Starlink in Jamaica is like, we have like hit a limit or something like that. We have enough people on Starlink, and maybe we can't add any more people because everybody getting Starlink. Because they can't get digital, they can't get, and Flow apparently is not a lot from what I heard, right? So it's a capacity thing where we can't build enough capacity for everybody to get there. Need investment in terms of that.
Yes, but This is why we have a universal service fund that was set up more than 20 years ago and has spent hundreds of millions of dollars. Not hundreds, sorry. By now, we've spent billions of dollars. The Bahamas established their universal service fund just 2 years ago. And ours has been in place for more than 20 years. We were supposed to have all schools connected to the net more than a decade ago. And we're still talking about it as a future. But so I'm just saying, Dimitri, the issue, Jamaica is a small country relative to most other countries in the world, you know. You talk about connectivity. The Bahamas is a lot of tiny islands, and yet they have connectivity that we don't. It is harder. Logistics is harder in the Bahamas than it is in Jamaica. At least we have roads.
You think so?
Yeah, man. I mean,
all this points the government incompetence if that's the case. You know?
Oh, of course. But yes, I don't think there's any I didn't realize there was any uncertainty about that.
Well, yeah, that's not up for debate at all, but I think you're pointing it out.
You guys think there's anything that's not here that could be a strength?
We need
Yeah,
to
for
take a
sure.
closer look at the investment in the data economy.
Expound on it.
Well, capacity is all about investing, capitalizing. So the more we appraise the investments that are being made, is the more we'll be able to appreciate, the extent of the effort that is being met out. It's like it's an analytical approach to things.
Okay. Let's see. Anybody else have any other strengths that you think could be here?
Well, Jamaica has historically and continues to import. We spend an enormous amount of money importing software relative to our economy. I mean, it's perhaps it's because there are so many foreign companies here. I mean, the foreign direct investment in Jamaica is huge, right? The FDI stock in Jamaica is more than 100% of our GDP. So you think about all those hotels that are owned by Spanish companies. They're not using Jamaican software to run those, so they have to pay license fees to whoever they're paying. All the multinationals that operate here, Campari and so on, undoubtedly they're paying license fees. So a similar thing may happen with generative AI. The fact is that these technologies are going to be brought in, they're likely to be brought in by the multinational corporations who want to improve the productivity of their capital, right? They want to become more profitable. And sometimes that might mean, especially now that we have a labor crunch, it might mean substituting labor with technology. So that might be, and given that it's already easy to do this because we've been doing it since the year 2000, that might be a strength. Might not be a strength we want, but the fact is that it augurs well for the adoption of AI certainly in the multinationals that operate in Jamaica, which is pretty much, that's a huge part of the financial sector, the tourism sector, the mineral sector. Those are all largely foreign owned. And of course, the telecom sector.
All right, so let's move on to the weaknesses. So the main points they raise here: digital divide and limited infrastructure, skills gap and workforce preparedness, limited research, development, and innovation funding. I think that's a big one. Regulatory and ethical challenges. Lack of established legal and ethical frameworks tailored to Jamaica's context could slow down AI implementation. Ensuring data privacy and managing AI risks require more robust governance structures. Dependency on external technology providers. Jamaica's AI ecosystem is largely dependent on foreign technology and expertise, leading to challenges related to control, customization, and potential risks associated associated with importing technologies that may not fully align with local needs. So just based on what's here, do you guys see anything that pops out at you? Or do you think there's a weakness here that they may have? Well, I assume there's probably a lot more weaknesses. But from these, what do you think is our biggest weakness to AI adoption in Jamaica?
Definitely the regulatory and ethical challenges. I think one thing that America and the UK lacks is ethical frameworks to keep up with AI innovation. So I like that Jamaica pointed it out. It's just, I'm curious how they're going to do it. Are they going to follow suit, or are they going to be proactive with establishing ethical frameworks?
So for me, it's the dependence on external providers. That's a real concern, as Greg was pointing out, and also the limited infrastructure, which is a part of the same problem. If we don't have things here, then obviously we're going to be taken over by outside forces in terms of the technology being supplied. And these companies are investing in that specifically so they can sell us that type of thing in the future. So to some extent, I don't think that's actually going to be preventable. But we still should be investing in local the technology development. You can't completely miss out like we did the first couple of times.
Yeah, for me, I think the funding for research development. But I think honestly, before the funding comes into play, the infrastructure has to be set up to make good use of the funding. I think everything from the education to just providing the right training resources so that our people can make good use of any sort of AI development and research funding. I think that's kind of lacking right now. The raw talent is here, but I don't see enough. There's a lot of talk, but not enough action in terms of quickly developing it in such a way that we can make use of a funding if it is even available or when it is available. I think even if we get the funding, so let's say for example, maybe for a data center, yeah, do we have the capacity? Do we have the skill set to even take advantage of that? Let's say we get funding to, I don't know, build an LLM or to do something along that space. Again, do we have the skill set, the capacity, or at least do we even have a plan per se to ensure that we can get to the desired goal in a reasonable time frame without wasting funds? I think that's one of the biggest challenges we're gonna have in terms of ensuring that we don't. I think we'll get funds, but I think if we're not careful, we might end up wasting it.
But it's
If-
where we come in. Like, how closely are we going to work with the government if we receive funding for AI development?
Mhm. So wait, there was a question? You were asking how.
Yeah, it was a question. Like, do you
Mhm.
foresee that's how we are gonna play a role? Or
Oh, in terms of the JAIA.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's the aim. Um, I think so. I think it's definitely the desire is there on our part. The government has to meet us halfway as well. In terms of working with us. Because I think we have a good sense of what's going on the ground. So they kind of have a more high level in the cloud sense of what's needed, but we are talking to the actual people that are in the field, that are passionate about the field, that really want to um make some impact in the country with AI. So they're going to have to work with us, um and that relationship has to be symbiotic if it's
Exactly.
going to be fruitful.
Yeah, that is why I think the skills gap is the
Mm-hmm.
biggest challenge that we face, because this is a very technical discipline, scientific, where we have to really put things into application to tap into the potential that exists. So without leveraging these technologies or having a way of organizing how we go about using this, right? We will always find ourselves lacking in the required skill set, because it's um a very practical discipline, as I said. You know, we should have the tools on hand that we need to make use of AI.
I feel like if we had the funding, we could make use of it. As Stone said, it would be very easy if we're not careful to waste it on something nonsensical. So we have to put lot of considerations into that. But I feel like the talent is excited to work on. Everybody in technology essentially is excited about it. That's why we hear it. That's why every day in the news is hearing about it. And I feel like people here are also excited to work on it and they're capable. But as Stone said, we don't want to waste any funds. So when we do get those funds, I feel like we need to put out all this effort to make good use of it. If it is not.
Which AI solution is your favorite, Matthew?
Which solution?
Which AI product is your favorite product? Since you're
Oh,
championing AI in Jamaica, which product would you push the most to us?
uh, that's a hard one to say because it depends on the context. Um, hmm. I think I mean I'm always a proponent for open source. So I like a lot of the new open source tools that are available now. Like the DeepSeek. Um, I tried out Grok the other day. It's pretty impressive. I do think, well, I think one of the the things that the Jamaica, especially in the banking sector, they I think need to still kind of figure out how they can incorporate some of these technologies into their um systems. Not even just external, like internally. Because even to this day, like they blocks access to some of these things. Yeah, and there is some concern, there's some justified concern there, especially data privacy. But there are ways around that. It's just again, is there enough desire to make that change as well as kind of as I said, there's a lot of talk, but not enough action. Like people are talking, having conversations about, hey, let's do this, let's do that. But I think there needs to be a lot
Implementation.
more urgency in terms of getting us where we need to be.
Yeah, and that is true. We need to watch the talking, honestly.
Yeah,
We don't want to sound like it's all about geeking out and not really producing anything solid. So
mm-hmm.
talk, we have to taper down the deeper talking. We need to, man. It's a
Yeah.
serious problem,
I mean,
man.
mind you, having discussions like this are important, but at the same time, I think it's good if there's like some actionable results. And the people that have the power to actually make these actionable results a reality, be a part of these discussions and actually do something about it. So even with this report, there's a lot of report, to be honest, I think could have been done already. um Yeah, I don't even think you really needed a report. A lot of these were kind of obvious that it could have possibly been implemented already. Even with this skills gap on workforce preparedness, um, a lot more work could have been or should have been implemented in this space already. Even working with international cloud providers to provide courses, working with universities to ensure that their syllabuses are updated to cater for the new AI space, generative AI space. I definitely think a lot could have been done already, in my opinion, to be honest. All right, let's move on. Don't want to spend all night on this. Opportunities. So they're saying here the opportunities AI for economic growth. I think that's self-explanatory. Public and private sector collaboration. This is an interesting one. I don't know if there's enough of that. International partnerships. Leveraging international partnerships and funding opportunities can accelerate Jamaica's AI adoption and innovation. AI for sustainable development. AI offers opportunities to address pressing social and environmental challenges in Jamaica, such as improving climate resilience, optimizing resource management, and supporting social services. Youth and entrepreneurial ecosystem, encouraging entrepreneurship in AI and supporting youth-led innovation can spur the creation of local AI startups and solutions that cater to Jamaican and regional needs. So do you guys see any opportunity that's maybe missing here, or does any one of these jump out at you as one of opportunities?
So, in terms of social and economic development, more broadly speaking than just AI, the Jamaica continues to not make use of the diaspora, which is the deepest pool of know-how that Jamaica has access to, and which is it is the lack of know-how why our companies, I'm talking private sector now, and in academia too, to a lesser extent, why our companies behave the way they do in terms of they're using management practices and technologies that are far behind the global production frontier. So we're talking about AI now. We have millions of Jamaicans living in the United States, Canada, and the UK, who are much more exposed to these technologies than most Jamaicans are, and who will be in a position to leverage the knowledge that they're accessing, and the implicit practices that they become exposed to help our Jamaican firms do better and our Jamaican communities do better. I don't see, I don't know if you saw any mention of the diaspora in this document, Matthew, but certainly I think that's something we shouldn't ignore.
But Craig, like, how do you envision that? Is it like a reverse brain drain? Like you leave Jamaica, you learn new technologies, bring it back home? Or is it, how do you
Yeah,
see that?
I think it'll be there'll be several paths, right? So I've helped Jamaicans, for example, who live in the southeastern United States, might live in Florida, or they live in Georgia. And so it's a short flight away from Jamaica, and they'll come back to Jamaica and set up businesses. They may not live here, they'll hire somebody from the community, maybe the community they grew up in, before they migrated to the United States, 20 years ago. And they pour money back into like a chicken farm in St. Catherine, right? But their chicken farm is going to be extraordinarily more productive than their neighbor's chicken farm, because of the technology, the management know-how that they bring with them, and the technologies that they're using. And even, for example, their ability, their confidence to navigate Jamaica's business environment, because Jamaica's business environment is very harsh, right? You have to figure out how to work with the banks, you have to figure out how to work with the government and get all the licenses and all that. And the average Jamaican just is not going to put up with that. It's just too much hassle. And so that's why the informal economy is so big. But if you're from the United States, you realize, listen, this is the cost of doing business and it's worth it. And so they hire lawyers, they hire accountants, they hire marketing people, and so their businesses are more likely to thrive. So that's one way. And especially because Jamaica is so close to the United States, even if you're coming in from San Francisco, you start in the morning and you'll be here by afternoon. Um, it's not that hard. But there may be other paths. People who come back as expats, when they're nearly retired, or there are people who are already they send back money. Remittances are already the largest source of foreign exchange for Jamaica. What we need now is for the knowledge to be coming back as well. I don't see people coming back, in the prime years of their lives in the 30s and 40s to work in Jamaica from the US, the UK, or Canada, because the salaries that they can command in those economies are multiples of what they'll get paid in Jamaica. So I don't think that's not historically, that's not the way it works. And I don't see that changing anytime soon, but maybe in 10 years time it will, like it has in India and China.
I mean, to be honest, in my opinion, we kind of need to move away from this idea that our path to success involves, I mean, maybe this has to be a cultural shift. Our path to success is primarily going to be someone gets an opportunity to go abroad and hope that they bring back the skills out here. For one, I think, especially with the political changes in the States, those opportunities are drying up. As well as I don't think it's a strategy that's really worked. I think we have to try to see how we can develop our skill sets here at home. Either with working with international bodies or yeah, I just think the whole idea of trying to bring back people that went abroad. I think if we more or less create an ecosystem that creates opportunities, and that may be hard to see how that can be done, but yeah, I think that's a better strategy than just hoping that people come back and share the knowledge.
I think that strategy to network with the diaspora community
Mm-hmm.
should be at the forefront of the efforts that we are making to
Mm-hmm.
expand in the world of AI, because some of these things are a luxury, that are not even
Mm-hmm.
I say disposable to a lot of us Jamaicans. So we can all talk, and that's the problem that we have. Like, we see these things very interested, we're talking about it, but
Mm-hmm.
then it's like it's a pipe dream that never comes true.
Mm-hmm.
So it's that we have to raise the standard and know that at that level we need to have a mechanism in place to provide the kind of fluidity or support that we need to drive AI forward.
I know we have resource challenges, but honestly, I think a big part of it is a mentality thing. I think we have a lot here already and a lot we can work with already, but I just think that there's just this mentality that automatically what we have here is just not good enough. So we either outsource it, which you see even before AI, just technology in general that's happening here in Jamaica. We're outsourcing. Companies out here are outsourcing to countries like India, for example. And their logic is, knowledge transfer and all of that stuff. But to be honest, I think it mostly just ends up in foreigners taking jobs that Jamaicans could possibly have. I just think that there's a lot we can do with what we already have. But I just think the mentality is just ingrained in our culture that if it's not foreign, then it's not good. I mean, if
Um,
it's yeah.
yeah, I mainly agree with you on this one, Stone. Um, I feel like what a lot of people don't realize is that the idea of what American exceptionalism, the idea of the American dream, that's like, guys, that's a direct propaganda effort by America, Like the whole point of that is to get the best quality immigrants from around the world to come to your country and cause better developments to happen there than what they would have done with on their own essentially. So what that automatically means is that some of the best people from all over the world end up going to America looking for opportunity. And on top of that, those people end up trying a lot harder, doing a lot more than they would have done out here before they exit, essentially. People
Yeah.
put out a lot more effort when they go to the States than they would have done in Jamaica. So yeah, I agree. It's kind of maybe a bad thing that some of those opportunities are trying up right now. But also we need to recognize that you've been directly propagandized in terms of believing, in the greatness of America essentially. Yes, it's a great place to get stuff done, but it shouldn't like prevent people from wanting to get stuff done in their own country because we can still improve things here without I mean, yeah, granted it's harder, but we should be at least be trying out here. I think more than we're actually doing right now. That's it.
Yeah, guys, I don't think there needs to be a trade-off. I don't think it's an either or. I absolutely agree that the talent we have in Jamaica is first rate. Um, so I think if Jamaicans want access to capital, they should get it. They should have access to the same incentives that the government provides to foreigners. So there should not be a privileging of foreign direct investment over local investment in the AI sector. Um, but at the same time, um, almost every Jamaican has relatives who live abroad. And the advantage of those larger economies is that their capital markets are a lot deeper. You just think about the startups that we have that have come out of Jamaica right now or out of Kingston that are doing well. They've gotten money much more easily from American accelerators and incubators than they have from Jamaica. Let me not put it that way. It's not that it's easier. It's that they can get much larger amounts, and they have gotten much larger amounts in the US than they will get in Jamaica. So all I'm saying is let's take advantage of those deeper capital markets and of the connections people have with large companies that operate in a sophisticated way. Because let's face it, even the largest Jamaican and Caribbean firms are small, are medium-sized firms in the United States and the larger economies.
No, I definitely agree with you on that. Like, definitely, I think we can work more with the diaspora. Um, but you know, even then, like the mentality of the diaspora kind of has to change as well. Because I think that pervasive thought is there that, oh, not going to Jamaica basically. Like, what's the point? Or is there any like talent? Basically, that negative mentality of what's the point of investing in Jamaica? Because there's probably the skill set isn't there or the talent isn't there. Which I think is a lie. Like the raw talent is here. Does it need to be honed or developed? Yes. But I see this all the time when talking to people who have been away from Jamaica for a long time. It's just the mentality is, oh yeah, you, you guys sure you can do that, or you guys have anybody that can do that? Like, I don't know if it's an exposure problem, like we're just not exposing the talent enough, or because that mentality is so pervasive, it just doesn't get the chance to to seep out from Jamaica, or I don't know. But it's something I see. It's something I see often. It's a shame, to be honest. Also I think resources aside, yes, I agree. Capital markets are deeper in these countries, but I think the investor mentality, it's it's not very sophisticated here in Jamaica. I've been to a lot of startup showcases, incubators, name it, business pitch competitions. I can tell you right now, the mentality of the investment scene here in Jamaica is not sophisticated enough for the AI space. It's not. For if we're to take advantage of the AI space going forward. To be honest, from what I've seen personally, um, I don't know if it's there's just not enough appetite for risk. But from what I've seen, the businesses that tend to get funded, or the pitches that win, they tend to be on more the traditional side of things, whether it's food or you know, um, just something somebody makes. That's not necessarily technology. And even the technology ones, it's more on the less risky side. And of course, um, they have to take risk into account. But to be honest, I think if Jamaica is going to move forward in the technology sector, especially in AI, the sophistication of the AI, the investment scene the level has to be raised, to be honest.
Yeah, Matthew, I think you've made the point more forcefully than I possibly could have. Right? That's exactly one of the ways in which the diaspora, I think, can help us. The reason local investors are not willing to put their money into AI initiatives is because they don't understand it. They're not sophisticated enough, because it's not something that they've seen done, or it's too foreign to them, right?
Yeah.
Whereas if you have you know, angels or accelerator groups from the United States that come, they say, look, yeah, this sounds good. This is worth investing in. And hopefully they can encourage the Jamaicans to get in. And the Jamaicans will say, well, if these guys from Atlanta or from Boston or from San Francisco think this is a good pitch, this is a good business, these are good founders, then yeah, let's go in with them. Let's syndicate and reduce our own risk exposure. Let's share the risks with these people who have deeper pockets and who have deeper smarts, and move the industry forward. Yeah, to my mind, that's an essential part of the journey.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to threats. So they mentioned cybersecurity risks, ethical and social risks. Well, we know this is a big we I don't think we do enough on this side of things. Ethical and social risks. So unchecked AI adoption could exacerbate social inequalities, increase bias in decision-making systems, and erode privacy. I think we kind of touched on some of those points already. Global competition. Jamaica faces stiff competition from AI from more technologically advanced countries that are heavily investing in AI. Question to you guys. Do you think budgetary constraints aside, do you think Jamaica is doing enough are we even investing in AI? Yeah.
That's a big no for me. I feel
Mhm.
like even this report that we're looking at it, it's kind of a big step for Jamaica essentially. And I feel like from the government point of view, it's kind of a big step for them into also. I mean, it's
Yeah.
not something that was on their radar until very recently. And it's
Mhm.
not like us that were looking at the programming and the AI for years now, right? So I think for them, this is a big step on uh, even going forward.
Yeah.
Stuff that we're talking might just turn out to be pipe dreams, but uh, I feel like it's at least a good start.
You think maybe it's a resource allocation?
Oh, sorry.
You think maybe it's a resource allocation thing because currently the AI task force lies under Minister Dana Dixon's profile, but she's managing several ministries right now: education, information. I don't know. I don't remember what's the next one. Technology, information, a lot. Do you think maybe there needs to be either a ministry or something directly looking at AI and AI integration in Jamaica? Is it kind of getting lost in the sauce right now with all of these different portfolios?
I don't know about entire ministry just to look at AI, but maybe
Mm-hmm.
you need someone that's specifically, so maybe assistant person that is specifically tasked with pushing
Mm.
these types of initiatives.
AI czar or something like that.
Mhm.
What we need, what we
Mm.
need is exactly what we're doing here
Mm-hmm.
because this is uncharted territory. It is very difficult to raise funds when we are talking about something that we're not an expert at.
Mm-hmm.
So to ask if enough investment is being made, I think that is the wrong question. We probably
Mm-hmm.
need to ask how much are we doing to adapt to AI?
Mm. Okay. Or maybe I should ask, or is enough focus being placed on it by our government?
Or even are we putting ourselves in a position
Mm-hmm.
to ask the government for support?
Mm.
Well, so Matthew, let me um make a positive comment
Mm-hmm.
regarding the government.
Yeah.
We have seen one example in recent time where the government was uh, very sensible, very visionary, and they didn't just talk, they acted. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm referring to the work that the Bank of Jamaica has done in rolling out a central bank digital currency. We're one of the first 10 countries in the world
Mm.
to roll out a central bank digital currency. I spoke with a researcher who will be visiting us in on the Mona campus of UWI in May. He's coming in from Italy, and one of the reasons he's coming, he's excited to come. His area of specialty is cryptocurrency,
Mm-hmm.
and specifically from the central bank point of view. And he says, yeah, you know, and every time he meets with central bankers and he's talking about central bank digital currencies, Jamaica always comes up.
Mm.
So, and this is, I think Livingston Morrison is the deputy BOJ governor who shepherded this, did a lot of work on it. Other people like Melanie Williams. So, I mentioned this to say, look, when you have enlightened leadership,
Mm.
you have a champion, somebody who is a visionary and is going to sit on this thing and make it happen, work at it for a couple of years, which is what it has taken. You can actually have significant progress even if there, you know, isn't an enormous amount of resources.
Yeah.
So um, maybe we can pray to God that we get a similarly enlightened leader to be our AI czar in the
Right.
government and champion it, because yeah, It's possible, especially with the open source models and what we see happening. It is possible.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I'm into politics, guys. I wanted to join politics. I just didn't have a business model to enter politics with, but I'm into politics, so I'm ready to take it to them.
Yeah, I think that's right. It doesn't. It, yeah, maybe it does come down to expertise problem. Because even on the task force, being honest, it's sort of lacking in some ways. But yeah, I do think you definitely need that sort of champion that's tasked specifically as a specific mission, not just to be on a committee to, have discussions or write reports, but it has literally been given a budget and has been given a director either from the top leadership, whether it's the prime minister or whatever, to enact the integration and adoption of AIs, research, development, integration into the Jamaican society and ecosystem. Yeah, it definitely is gonna require that sort of, as you say, AI champion or czar. A focal point, someone that somebody can sort of look to get this done. It has to be honest, someone that's willing to be a disruptor and not just kind of
Like
go.
somebody like Craig.
Sure.
You feel there?
Thank you for that, sir.
Definitely has to be somebody who's willing to be a disruptor and not just follow the status quo. And more about action and less about seeming to get things done and more about actually getting things done. Definitely that needs to happen. All right, so resistance to change, cultural resistance, AI driven change. What do you think about that though? Given that Jamaica is a very religious country, there's this whole thing about, mark of the beast. Do you think that's probably going to be one of the things that maybe hold us back? There's a lot of people that have problems with the whole needs thing and the data collection, and they're kind of drawing reference to religious references. Could something similar happen with AI, or is that even happening already? Are people having could that sort of cultural aspect hold us back possibly?
Well, I don't think so. Now, I think for every new trend, everything
Mhm.
that starts to become popular, they always have this side of the discussion. But does it really, at the end of the day, affect anything? You always have these villagers. Everything is the mark of the beast. Every new thing that come out is, end of
Yeah.
the world, according to some people. But the world hasn't ended yet. And I mean, maybe this time it does, but probably not because of what these people are thinking.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
What
and
about this?
it's a serious concern, Matthew. What we need to do is talk to the Jamaica umbrella group of churches, and there are
Mhm.
about 2 or 3 of these groups, and instead have a discussion with them and help them to preach from
Yeah.
the pulpit that this is for the good of our communities, and ensure that it is deployed in a way that is
Yeah,
for the.
exactly. Yeah. I think that, yeah, they said that right. Ensure that it is, because you can say that it is, but if AI is a tool, like any other tool, if it can be abused and used improperly. And it's important, if these organizations are essentially putting their trust in us that, these systems are good for society, then the onus is on us to ensure that it is used in a proper way and the framework is set up to ensure that it is. Because if it used improperly, then yes, the worst fears can be realized. And there is a risk of it going too far where it just never comes back. It's almost like getting a bad rep. Once you get the bad rep, it's hard to come back from that. We don't want something like that to happen to AI with AI. One of the big concerns is this economic displacement. This was a big fear. Like when the ChatGPT in 2022, a lot of people were saying, "Oh, the job market is gonna be shaking up," and it doesn't seem to be playing out in a way a lot of people had predicted. Do you think this will be much of a thing going forward in terms of economic displacement? Is this a possible? Is this really a threat, or is it more of an opportunity?
Remember the ChatGPT moment, what happened was that one day ChatGPT didn't exist, and then all of a sudden everything just happened. ChatGPT was on everybody's radar.
Right.
So it was just slowly creeping up to that moment. I mean, for the people who were following AI at that point, I mean, ChatGPT wasn't anything all that special. It was just a slight modification of what was being done before. But I feel like we're headed on that trajectory, right?
Yeah.
To that point where all of a sudden the AI can do all the jobs, and we really do have to start panicking and worrying about everybody losing their job. But I mean, I think it's gonna happen globally. So at the very least, we won't be alone in terms of that when it does happen.
And
don't know.
remember that the same words that Dimitri just used, but with a slightly different accent. That conversation happened in Europe, it happened in the UK, happened in the US. 200 years ago, 100 years ago, in 1971, when the first microprocessor came out, we've had this conversation several times before. And we are moving. Let's look at automation. The goal was to reach, I think it was 47% automation by 2025. And instead, we are still in the low 30s, right? Robot penetration is at 1% of the total addressable market. 1%, right? So I don't disagree with Dimitri that the day may come when AI can do, let's say, even 80% of jobs. That would be immense. But right now, I mean, I grew up with computers, and it is still a hard sell, not just in Jamaica, but around the world, to get even half of the things that can be automated, right? Just using the programming languages that all of us grew up with. So I'm not so worried yet that I'm not worried that I'm gonna lose my job this decade. Maybe in another 10 years time I might need to reconsider that. But in Jamaica, the reason I'm much less worried is because for AI to automate your job, it has to be a job that is knowledge intensive and that requires decisions. And the vast majority of roles in Jamaica are not knowledge jobs. They're manual jobs because of the way our economy is structured. So yeah, I don't see, I don't see a huge threat in the near term, which I define as 5 to 10 years time. Even in the United States, like you said, this massive unemployment, instead Goldman Sachs is laughing at those people and saying, yes, where is it?
Yeah, I think there definitely will be changes. I don't think it's gonna happen as quickly as people had first envisioned, or in the way they had envisioned it. I think with the changes, there's definitely gonna be more opportunities. I think there's definitely, and you're seeing it already in terms of the type of jobs young people are leaning towards. The more young people are leaning to, like, content creation, things that didn't exist, say, 10 years ago. So whilst I do think some jobs will change in how they're done, and maybe will require less people to do it, at the same time, I think you will see other opportunities arise So I don't think this whole idea of there needs to be some universal basic income because nobody's gonna have any money and they basically the government now needs to give them money to survive. Like, yeah, I just think that that was just uh yeah, the globalists just like to have conversations like that, but I don't think it's realistic or
I think we need not fear AI. You know, there is a stigma that AI will replace humans. And it's all about going back to the drawing board because we are high level thinkers. So we would want to look at the engineering process to see how AI is transforming things on different levels and how it can work for us all in the long term. Because technology is a very touchy thing where we can be consumed by it. So we even have to be responsible with how we push AI. It's like it has to be done very, you have to take a very technical approach to it. I mean,
Yeah.
it is a very bright, it has a lot of bright possibilities.
All right. So, let's see if we can finish up by just going to the recommendations now. All right. To save on time, there's a table that they made here. Then we'll go through that and then maybe come back to some of the challenges that they stated here. All right. So AI for innovation and economic growth. So in the short term, they're saying creating ecosystems through collaboration with universities, support virtual and eventual physical establishment of AI hubs and tech parks. Create fora and other spaces for interactions between organizations that are willing to fund the development of AI solutions to their problems. Increase awareness of the role of intellectual property protection in scaling startups. In the medium term, which is 4 to 6 years, introduce government grants, venture capital incentives, and public-private partnerships to fund AI research. Develop incentive programs, including tax breaks and grants to encourage private sector investment in AI innovation. Long-term, develop AI-centered industrial policies, encouraging traditional industries to adopt AI, aiming to make Jamaica a regional AI innovation hub by 2035. So short-term, that's 1 to 3 years. So
Yeah.
more or less that should be something should be happening already, I'd assume. How realistic are these 3 points here?
Honestly, I find this time period this kind of disappointing. I was hoping for everything in the medium term to be in the short term, probably maybe even next month. I'm kind of concerned about that. I feel like if what this year of doing stuff by 2035, I mean, in my mind, the AI race might be over by 2035. By then, we might have full automation, and this thing right here might not even make any sense as a goal by that point.
So you think it should be faster?
Yeah, definitely. I think this is slow motion moving through, moving in almost reverse speed compared to how fast things are happening.
Okay. So this they were just saying creating an ecosystem through collaboration with universities support. Essentially, it sounds like they want to create some sort of AI hub or tech hub. I don't know. I don't think I've seen any movements on that front. That's probably something that could have maybe been started already. And so there's the goal of what they want. It seemed that but it's short on details. If I'm being honest, I'm not sure exactly how they would go about approaching this. Create fora and other spaces for interactions between organizations that are willing to fund the development of AI. Increase awareness of the role. So Do you guys think these, I guess, goals are short on detail? That's the impression I get. I'd have liked to see a bit more detail on possibly how they may think of approaching, especially with the AI hubs and the collaboration with universities. Like, how exactly would that look?
Well, Matthew, let me suggest that the reason it may seem short on details is because this task force did not have the right. I'm saying perhaps the reason it seems these recommendations may seem short on detail is because the task force would not have the wherewithal to go into greater detail because they're not policymakers. They're making recommendations, very high level recommendations that will go to the minister, who will then, work with, across all the different ministries, departments, and agencies that are responsible, farm out the work and get them to spin up project teams or create a project execution office to get this done. But it doesn't surprise me. The level of detail here is not surprising to me because of the what I imagine were the terms of reference for the committee.
Fair point. Anybody else have any thing they want to add here? In terms of first of all, do these goals seem realistic? Are we going to achieve these short-term goals? This is 1 to 3 years. In 3 years, are we going to have AI hubs?
For everything else, I don't really know much, but is for like the AI ethics, I feel like that could happen right now. They could have government policymakers go to colleges and speak, give seminars. They could create an AI ethics board. They can partner with you to make sure that, they're thinking about any unintended consequences about whatever they want to implement. The easy stuff I don't see them acting on, which is surprising to me.
Right, right. Yeah, I do see there definitely some things that could have been started already. So in terms of education and workforce development, they integrate AI and coding. So this was an interesting one. AI and coding into the national curriculum at all educational levels. How realistic do you think this is? And what does that even mean? What do you mean by AI? And yeah, what does AI education look at the basic school level or the primary school level?
I would say more like the primary school level makes a bit more sense. And I don't think that's unrealistic at this point to teach primary school kids basic programming. Uh, Especially with the use of AI that can literally just write the program for you, even though that's not necessarily the direction you want to teach them in. I mean, it's such an excellent resource for writing code. I feel like that's practical right now. I think the real preventing factor there actually might be the teachers themselves. But if we try to, at the very least, I mean, get some IT department that have people that are actually into the AI and know their way around it somehow, to some level. I think you could get the kids more interested in programming. I mean,
I don't
if
know.
honestly, if the tools that I had to learn to program with were textbooks, like I had to read a whole gigantic 1,000 page textbook on C++ or whatever. I mean, if that was the case, I would probably just not bother in at all, essentially.
Yeah,
But
but
in it,
the question is, how does that really look? Because I mean, the kids in primary school are barely reading and writing and doing math properly. We're adding on coding onto that.
coding isn't math, coding is just basic logic. If this, then do that.
Yeah,
I mean,
you say it's
if you can
basic
do that,
logic, but I even like in university, they're struggling with logic. So
well, yes,
you're
but if
teaching coding and you don't even have our literacy skills right now are poor. Math skills, we had what, 40% in CSEC pass rate or less than that or thereabout?
I
Is
don't think the
cramming
math skills
cramming coding
are,
and AI into that curriculum now the right move? How does
yes,
that even?
I 100% think that, because the AI, it teaches itself. It's the first time we have something that can actually teach it to do itself. This is some advanced technology working with all. It's not like back in the day when if you didn't understand a math problem,
Yeah, but
you just stop.
what I'm
No,
saying
you
is
can't. It's very difficult
as
to get stuck at this
a
point, right?
primary school kid, right? A
Mhm.
6-year-old, 7, 8-year-old primary school. How do you teach AI to a primary school?
I don't
Show the, tell them to ask the AI how to answer a question. Simple. Use the AI to answer a question.
Use the AI to answer a question.
Yeah.
Are you really teaching AI or are you just telling them
Well,
that GPT?
I guess you would start at that, right? But you would test them on what they learned from the AI.
But what if the AI is telling them foolishness?
Then that's something they should learn also.
Yeah,
They
but
should
how
learn
they
to recognize. They
foolishness?
should learn to recognize when the AI is telling them foolishness.
But
I always know that there's a
wouldn't they need to know the knowledge before being able to recognize that the AI teaching them foolishness?
not really. They can
But
ask
how
the
you
AI,
gonna know it's foolishness?
then verify apart from what the AI. Use websites, use normal websites to verify what the AI is saying. Because once you know something, I think it's more easy to confirm it once you have an idea what you're looking for.
Yeah, but I'm saying, what if they don't have an idea?
Well, no, the AI does give them an idea. And if they
Yeah, but
can
what
go
if the
online,
AI is wrong about the idea?
you can confirm that the AI is wrong about the idea.
Oh,
Just Google it, go to our trustworthy website, and you can say, oh, actually, the AI told me foolishness.
what if they
That-
don't have that skill of Googling in the first place?
I don't think that's a big ask to ask people to Google stuff.
What? Like, you'd be surprised. Like,
We're talking children that are very
yes, and
technologically savvy
children.
because they've been using cell phones
What do you
since
think
they were
children are
child.
doing on their phones? Googling astronomy. They're watching
No, they're
TikTok.
not Googling astronomy. They're watching YouTube. So right, typing text into YouTube should help them to learn to Google.
I
Simple.
don't know. I just think with all the stuff that kids are learning and the fact that our literacy skills, math skills are so poor, adding AI educate, what does that even look like? What are you teaching?
I feel like math also is something that AI can help with. Simply because if you don't understand something, the actual proper way to use AI is to use the AI to explain it to you multiple times. They can ask the AI everything, anything about the topic from any angle. And because basic school or primary school math is so well known, like basically obvious, AI will explain it to you correctly
Well,
100% of the time.
that's kind of different. That's not really learning. It's more just utilizing AI
To
to
learn.
make the learning process easier.
Yeah, so you're saying we have a problem with maths, the kids learning maths. So I'm saying AI is the solution to that problem. Otherwise, kids can learn maths better with the use of AI, and then they can also learn code with the use of AI.
Yeah,
It's
can
not
I ask a question of both of you gentlemen? Tell me something. Do you think that literacy in English or some written language is a prerequisite to being able to use AI,
At the
generate AI?
no,
at the
no,
moment,
no, not necessarily because you have the voice on the AIs, and a lot of people. You'd be shocked at the amount of people in the world that get by use TikTok every day without even knowing how to read. They can just click on the buttons and record their video, listen to the video, watch a video, and navigate the whole site without knowing how to read. That's actually very common in third world countries.
I feel like to approach AI literacy in education, it's definitely a learning scope. For basic school children, I think you just have to tell them what AI is in the most simple way possible. If you move to like primary school, middle school, that's where you don't grade them on like AI's output, but on prompting. So how well do you prompt the AI? How well did you receive the information that you needed? So it would be like two things. Like number one, yes, like grade them on prompting, but also how well do you use AI as a tutor? So if they learn prompting in like middle school, and in my head, middle school ends at 8th grade. So they start high school at like 9th grade. So that's when you can grade students on their output because you already learned how to prompt very well. Personally, for me, my college is doing certifications for AI literacy. So by the time we graduate, we can say that we know how to do this. We know the difference between this sort of AI, how AI learns, blah, blah, blah. And we do it through I forget what certification company that we were doing it through, but it's a digital badge that we may place like on our LinkedIn. So on a college level, you can do something like that with certification. So once you graduated and you're in the workforce, you can advocate for yourself with evidence that you know AI very well. So it's really a learning scope where AI, first you learn what AI is, then you learn how to speak with AI, then you learn how to learn with AI, and then the more technical things when you reach college. I think that's like the best way to implement it.
Hmm. I don't know. I think they're gonna find it all, especially the coding part. I think they're gonna find it a lot harder than they think. I think there's this myth that somehow you can just teach coding to anybody and they just automatically take it up like like a fact-based subject or whatever. The fact is coding does require at least some form of logical thinking. So maybe the focus should be more on that. I don't know necessarily what's the best way to teach that, but just thinking that, oh, you're just gonna teach coding and all these kids, I see it even at the university level. That you think that they're getting it, but they're not. They'll do enough to pass the course and whatever, but they don't actually understand it. And you're going to find the same issue, I think, even more in primary schools. Teaching this. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I think let me just go first, Craig. I think you're right enough, Stone. You're going to find a case where many people are not going to like the subject, but that's the case with every subject. Every single subject, you have a certain portion of the class that does not enjoy the subject. So it's fine if we teach it and everybody doesn't learn it. The people who don't like coding can do okay. How to do creative work with AI. So it's
But
not like AI is only one field. Like we can still use AI on different things, and other people can enjoy using
the
AI. But
impression
in
I'm getting is they're gonna put it on the same level as like a math and English. Just like how everybody have to do math and English at the CSEC level, you have to go do coding at CSEC or something like that.
well, it doesn't have to be one of the core subjects, but I think it's worthy as a subject to study. Just basic coding at the primary level. I think that's reasonable.
I don't know. I mean, I teach coding. I teaching at the primary level. It's in Jamaica, especially in Jamaica. I think you're gonna find it a lot harder than you than.
Matthew?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here. No, I'm just saying. I
Yeah.
was ending by saying I think it's gonna be a lot harder to integrate that into
Well,
primary.
so Matthew, here's what I say. Perhaps, I mean, at the primary level, I think below primary level is not really useful. But at the primary level, and I was the country lead for the one laptop program, the OLPC, the one laptop per child program that came out of the MIT Media Lab, um, in 2004 or thereabouts. So I've tried to help children learn to code. It wasn't 2004, it was more like 2010, 2011. But anyway, I've tried to help children learn to code. They use tools like block programming languages like Pipi. So they're but you need to adjust your expectations, right? They might not even realize that what they're learning is how to code.
No.
But you might be able to expose a whole generation to the notion of, and that's symbolic logic, right? That's not the kind of stochastic effects that we're getting from generative AI, which is a totally different paradigm.
Right.
But the benefit would be that we'd have a workforce in 10 years, 15 years time that understands that computers can do these things, which would be an advance over where we are right now, where um, many persons within private sector who made their living, develop their wealth, just they didn't grow up with computer, and as far as they're concerned, the computer can stay in the corner, or maybe something for their accountant to use. But
Yeah.
that's that explains why our adoption rate has been so slow. At least that's certainly what a lot of business coaches in Jamaica have told me. But the other thing is, I mean, I can guarantee you that this is dead in the water. Absolutely. And I'll say it on national TV and to the Gleaner. There's no way on a God sky AI and coding is going to be integrated into the national curriculum in the next 5 years. It takes a decade for Jamaica, a decade or more for Jamaica to update its curriculum. It always has, right? That's one. And then two, that's just the curriculum. That's just a piece of paper, right? Actual implementation. I mean, come on, we don't even have 300 physics teachers at the secondary school level in the entire country, right? So the notion that you're going to find computer science teachers to teach at the primary school level is just somebody's crazy idea.
Yeah, which is why I'm saying, like, having this as a short-term goal is unrealistic. For all education levels is unrealistic. Like, I'd see it more like, say, having vocational schools like Heart, VTDI, having specialized courses in AI. That is, I think, is a more realistic ask, short, to medium term, and say, oh, we're going to implement this across all primary schools. At all educational levels within 1 to 3 years is it's just not realistic in my opinion.
Yeah, we don't even teach computer science in most high schools in Jamaica anymore.
Yeah.
Most high school students don't learn. When I was in high school more than nearly 30 years ago, I learned to program, right? But that was one of a dozen schools. 12 schools in the entire country taught programming at that time. Today, this is 2025. We still do not have half of Jamaican high schools teaching programming. They might learn how to use Microsoft Office productivity tools or something like that. But at the CSEC level, most high school students do not learn to program. They don't get any exposure to it, right? So the notion that we're going to get it to even lower levels in the education system is, to me, it's not realistic. And I think perhaps we need to ask the writers of this report what their expectations were, because we know that Professor Core, for example, who I believe is has worked with CSEC on the computer science and the IT curricula, he must have some explanation, I think, for why this is here and for what it means. And the final point I'd say to this is, let's remember, folks, the in-school population in Jamaica now is less than 20% of the population, and dwindling because Jamaica's population is rapidly aging and the birth rate is falling. So it's not the school age population that needs to learn these new skills. It is the working age population, right? If we're to become wealthier, it's the working age population we need to focus on, not schools in Jamaica now. They're still important because they're children, and we get nice warm fuzzy feelings about them, but that is not where Jamaica is going to create its wealth.
Yeah. All right. I don't want to go with time, so I'm just pick out a few more points. We probably might have to have a part 2 to this discussion. But let's see if I can find one that sticks out. Let's see this one. All right, it says develop interim guidelines for AI ethics and data privacy, ensuring AI applications comply with existing data protection laws. Ensure that the legal system is equipped to deal fairly and expeditiously with disputes, particularly around intellectual property. Implement new and/or review existing legislation to facilitate use of AI. In the medium term, create a national AI regulatory framework addressing issues such as AI liability, bias, and transparency. Long-term, establish a national AI regulatory authority responsible for monitoring AI development, enforcing ethical standards. It kind of feels like the medium and short-term is saying the same. Medium and long-term kind of saying the same thing. But I think we're saying like some of this could have probably already been implemented, at least in the works, some sort of AI regulatory framework. Maybe that's the case though. Maybe there's information that we don't know of. Yeah, is there anything here that jumps out at you guys, or does it seem realistic for the near term? Yeah, I think in my opinion, there's again they dealing with that conflict of the data protection and advancing AI. Striking a good balance so that is gonna be a bit tricky. There needs to be something that works unlike government usually does, where it's dynamic and can respond quickly. It can't be a rigid regulatory framework for sure. Has to take into account several things. So it has to strike that balance between innovation as well as protecting data or data protection.
Yeah, Matthew, answering your question about whether this is doable in the short term, the second bullet, ensure that the legal system is equipped to deal expeditiously with disputes, especially around IP. Look, I've seen there have been two major intellectual property cases in Jamaica since the year 2000. One was a programmer who developed the software that I think became Bill Pay for Grace Kennedy. That was a major lawsuit. It took more than 17 years to be resolved. Second, an American, let me not say American, an international pharmaceutical company brought some drugs into Jamaica for distribution and prevented two local companies. I think it was Lascelles and another one of our large pharmaceutical companies from distributing their drugs for one of our major illnesses, like diabetes, or maybe it was high blood pressure. Their loss was in the hundreds of millions of dollars. And it took, once again, these are the most powerful companies in Jamaica, and it took more than 15 years for that lawsuit to be settled. So the notion that we're going to begin to be able to deal expeditiously with intellectual property law matters in Jamaica, in the short term, that's just a pipe dream. If you look at all the ratings for Jamaica's civil justice system, it's getting better. These people try hard, but the notion that it's going to increase in efficiency significantly in the short term, it's just not real.
Yeah, I agree. The legal system moves to it's not realistic. All right, let me see if there's anything that jumps out. Recommend that AI solutions so the government be built in ways that can be resourced as reused in private companies. Encourage AI solutions are open source. This one tricky. It'd be curious to know what exactly they mean by open source. I think if a bank is making an AI solution, they're probably not gonna want to be open sourcing that. Incentivize private capital by giving early corporation participants privileged access to these solutions. Interesting. Ethical foundations of AI implement the UNESCO recommendations on ethics of AI. Develop national AI ethics guidelines that outline core principles for responsible AI use, focusing on fairness, transparency, and accountability. Establish an independent AI governance body to monitor AI developments. I think that's something that could probably already have been done. Embed ethical considerations into all AI regulatory frameworks, ensuring that AI technology supports inclusive, equitable development. So we'll just end on some closing points. If anybody, we more or less reached the end of the report. I guess general thoughts on the report before to just end things. We may have a part 2 on this, but just general closing points on the report. What were your thoughts? What probably you'd have liked to see more of? Yeah.
So as I said before, I agree with most of what's in the report. Most of it is flowery language that I guess might be just something of a pipe dream. But I mean, I've been seeing things get better over the years as it relates to how the government acts with certain things. So maybe this can improve as well, even though it, for the most part, it seems like a pipe dream. And the implementation for some of the stuff, it does seem a bit slow, as if the government really doesn't intend to invest all that much into it as we would want. So maybe we should be the ones advocating more and more for that type of investment. Maybe not taking us seriously enough on this type of trajectory that we don't want to be investing in this thing. We don't want to leave it up to other countries to get every single thing and leave us behind. Right? So we should be some strong advocates, I think, pushing these things forward.
Yeah, I'd like to echo Dimitri's optimistic tone. Let me give you one example of what I think is possible. The largest solar farm in Jamaica is in Westmoreland. Sorry, let me rephrase that. The largest solar farm in the entire Caribbean is in Westmoreland. And it was done through private capital. A Jamaican who was educated here, went abroad and did her postgrad education there, worked on Wall Street, figured that she could use her know-how and capital. There was a significant opportunity, she thought, to build this solar farm in Westmoreland, and it's there now, making a huge contribution to Jamaica. And it's something that she didn't need the government to do. So I'm hoping that we will be similarly lucky, that there will be that there are those of us who may not be in the public sector and don't have our hands tied and may be able to help do significant things in Jamaica in terms of AI. So I think it is possible. At the same time, going back to this report, my major criticism of this report is that it appears to treat Jamaicans almost entirely as just economic agents, as if the only thing we want to use AI to do, the only concern that we have for AI is how it affects us as economic agents, as workers or as employees. There's not enough consideration for the social impacts of AI and for the cultural impacts of AI. And given that these historically technology is used to repress societies, this to me is a concern. We don't have enough sociological content. We don't have enough of the social science angle being reflected in this report. That's one. And then on the cultural angle is another, which just, given that Jamaica's greatest export is our culture, especially our music, and we have our musicians, the people in the music industry will tell you we don't have enough sound engineers. Otherwise, we'd get a lot more reggae music out there. So that's technical expertise in what is probably our greatest area. So what are we going to learn from that for generative AI? We need those people who have succeeded to talk, for their views to be expressed in a report like this. And to my mind, it's absent.
All right. I think some good points were raised. It was a good discussion. We definitely need to have some more discussions like this. We probably will have a part 2 to this at some point, but It was definitely a very productive discussion. So we definitely want to see what we can take from this. We'll be posting the video or the recording, I should say. So more can see and hear what we've been saying today. And hopefully it drives the conversations a bit more in the wider Jamaican society. But I think what we did today was pretty important. All right, guys, thank you for your time. Thank you for coming out. It was a good discussion. All right, night, guys.
Thanks a lot, Matthew. Take care, guys.
All right.